The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel to Sicily, to the northern slopes of Mount Etna, Europe's most active volcano, and to the small village of Solicchiata to meet my guest, Angelo Silvestro of the Pietradolce winery. Good morning, Angelo.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for this occasion. It's a very pleasure for us to explain and to talk about our amazing territory.
Great. Well, I look forward to that. Is Mongibello quiet today?
She is, because she refers to Mount Etna as a female goddess, so she's pretty quiet today.
Okay. And has it been a fairly quiet year for the volcano?
Yeah, I consider that we are in an activity moment now that it can last for 40 years or more sometimes. So some days we have eruptions, some days lava flows, smokiness, or just rains of ashes.
Okay. Well, growing grapes and making wine on the slopes of Europe's most active volcano is a unique vocation in a unique environment. Can you describe for our listeners, Angelo, can you describe where you are, what the landscape's like, what the views are, so we can get a picture of where you are on this unique environment?
Sure. Yes, we are actually in the northern slope of Mount Etna, looking at the Nebrodi mountain range. The Nebrodi mountain range makes a difference to make this area, the northern slope of Mount Etna, a little bit drier and warmer compared to the east. So Mount Etna is pretty unique for this. It's not a matter of the sun exposure or the air circulation. It's a matter of different altitude, different landscapes. So it's pretty unique. Talking about where we are in a pretty warm area compared to the east, despite the north facing. And there's a less green compared to the east that is very beautiful too. We also have a couple of hectares in the east side of the volcano, close to Milo, because we are mainly focused on the northern slope, but just 2 hectares we have in the eastern slope. And Milo is very green, it's very humid, it's very, very fresh. So Mount Etna is able to give us the possibility to produce different wines moving among the different sides, different slopes of Mount Etna, or just moving a few meters, because what changes the exposure, the altitude, and for sure the soil itself, because the soil is affected by different lava flows.
Okay, that's a really good description. The Nebrodi Mountains to the north, protecting the northern flanks of Etna itself. This warm atmosphere. You're telling me, Angelo, it's a very hot day, a very humid day.
Today, yes, today and yesterday too were very, very hot and humid. But I think that June and July are the hottest month at all here, because usually in August we have some rains, the temperature drop during daytime and nighttime temperature. September will be much more fresher.
Okay.
So the last part of June usually is pretty hot. At the moment, we are not in average, but for us, these conditions are normal. I think that this vintage will be very good because the grapes are very healthy at the moment, and we hope about a very, very good season this year.
Okay, great. Now, Angelo, share with us a brief history of Pietradolce.
For sure, Pietradolce was founded in 2005. Consider that 2005 was the first part of the reborn of Mount Etna wines. This reborn starts in between the late 19th and the early 2000s. And at that time, there were just 15 wineries probably on Mount Etna. I think yes. Today, there are more than 240 different wineries. The property is the family Faro, and the family Faro, since the beginning, had an idea, a precise idea, producing high quality wines from on the northern slope of Mount Etna and mainly from pre-phylloxera vineyards. I'm pretty sure that we have a lot of knowledge about phylloxera. Phylloxera on Mount Etna didn't spread so much, actually, less than other areas like Piemonte area or the west part of Sicily. Mainly because of two different reasons. One is the sandy soil we have here. Sandy soil doesn't match very well with phylloxera. And the second, the position of each vineyard. The orography here at Mount Etna is very hard, thanks to the lava flows we have. And some vineyards are almost in quarantine, so isolated. And this was very, very useful to avoid the phylloxera to spread out. So here we can talk about pre-phylloxera vineyards. Obviously, we have 20% of the vines that had resisted against phylloxera, 85% that are ungrafted, so no grafted onto American rootstock. It means that they preserve the genetical code of pre-phylloxera vine.
Italian Wine Podcast. If you think you love wine as much as we do, then give us a like and a follow anywhere you get your pods.
Okay, this is really, really interesting, Angelo. And I think a point you made is very, very important. Etna is one of the oldest winelands in Italy, indeed in the world. But it's also hugely exciting because it's a wine region that has only rediscovered itself over the last, well, as you say, from the 1990s on. So we're talking about the last 30 years, this rediscovery, this renaissance of the wines of Mount Etna, even though vines have been on the volcano for probably thousands of years. Pietradolce is an example then of a new wine estate that reflects this new modern Etna. Tell us about the actual wine cantina, because I understand it's a really beautiful, my colleagues have described to me a really beautiful, ultra-modern wine cantina.
Yes, the idea of the family was a sort of vat for both wine and beauty. That's why we built this winery between 15 and 17, and we opened doors for wine lovers just in 2018. So we took 4 years to complete the interior design, which is very minimal and refers to our territory. So we had some pieces of art in the winery that is a sort of dialogue between us and our beautiful landscapes. One of these pieces of art is called Pietre d'Acqua, and I try to introduce you this piece of art just with my words. Imagine a base of a burned steel that refers to the fire part, so the lava flow. There is a sort of base of water that create a sort of movement, and this refers to the snow that melts during spring and provide tier by tier an important supply of water for the rivers and the ground. We also have in this piece of art a reflection on the ceiling, and this reflection is like the abstract element of Mount Etna, the vibration, the movement. This piece of art, this base of brown steel, is plenty of 31 rocks made of Murano glass that refers to the rocks of Mount Etna, because we have plenty of rocks here. So this is probably the main piece of art we have, but we also have 4 more pieces of art in the winery.
So the winery is very much linking itself to history and art and culture. And that's very important to the Faro family from the beginning, not just creating a functional winery.
Yes, the family is very, very connected with the territory. They also have a small luxury hotel in Java, so southeast part, and because they are agriculturists, they have a nursery plant business, and both these two business are still very connected with territory. So, for example, the small luxury hotel is very green because that area is very green. Here on the winery, we use just a few materials like iron, like rock, just some colors like gray, like black. Each building refers to the territory it came from.
Okay, so that's really a good description. Now, the estate owns 30 hectares of small plots located within Rampante, Zottorinoto, Santo Spirito, Feudo di Mezzo. These are contrade at a range of different altitudes. Can you explain to our listeners what a contrada is and why it's so important on Etna?
Consider that the Contrada is a pretty big area, and usually, originally, these contradas are divided among them by a lot of lava flows. So you can consider like Montrachet, so a big area within this Contrada. A grower is able to produce different wines. For example, in Coltivated Rampante, where we are mainly focused, we produce a part of the basic red and white and three single vineyard wines, refers to our prime line. So within the same contrada, we can have different altitude, different exposure of different soils because of the different lava flow. But for sure, the difference in altitude between, for example, Santo Spirito, which is very high, and Feudo di Mezzo, which is very low, the difference is huge. So our Feudo di Mezzo wine usually is very fruity, very rich on the mouthfeel, whereas Santo Spirito, because of the very high altitude, is very volcanic in terms of profile, with a lot of iron performs, ashes, smokiness. So depending on the altitude, depending on the lava flow, you can produce totally different wines, even if, for example, we use the same identical winemaking process.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I think your description of it in relation to, say, Montrachet and the Grand Cru of the Côte d'Or and Burgundy is important because we're talking about really marked and striking differences in wines, in cru wines from the different contrade. So for our listeners, I think it's important to understand that the contrade represent the Grand Cru of Etna. Would you say that's correct?
Some contradas represent the Grand Crus, like Feudo di Mezzo is one of the most renowned role, for example, or Santo Spirito too, actually, or Barbabetti, but Barbabetti, for example, at the moment is outside the DOC, so they are discussing about moving up probably in the next years. But what changes, all the contradas are close by and next to each other. Some contradas are very, very renowned, some less, but all the contradas are able to produce pretty fine and elegant wines.
Okay. Now, I just want to go back to this point you've made because I think it's important for our listeners. The pre-Phylloxera vines that have been grown for, in some cases, more than 100 years. Now, when the family came to Etna, were these old vineyards still in place and then they were restored, brought back to life? We're talking about Nerello Mascalese, Nerello Cappuccio, the Carricante on the eastern side. These are old vineyards, pre-Phylloxera vineyards that had been abandoned and then re-brought back to life. Is that how it happened in the Renaissance of Etna?
Sometimes yes, sometimes we just bought already planted vineyard that the ancient grower was not able to go further, to go ahead. So we just bought the already planted vineyards in this case. But for sure, each winery has young vineyards from which producing different wines or entry level wines. We make the same, for example. We bought year by year, over time, we added different small parcels of pre-phyllox and already planted vineyard we just bought. Meanwhile, we planted new vineyards that now we use for our entry level white and red. Actually, it's a very important point because, for example, our rosé that belongs to basic line. Our rosé is the only wine from Pietradolce line that came from a single vineyard because we decided to exalt the rosés category and we choose from that type of wine, we choose a single vineyard. And it's very old, actually, it's not with phylloxera. We talk about 35 years old vineyard. But from that vineyard in Zottorinoto area, we produce a very fine mineral and refreshing rosé.
Okay, I think the rosés of Etna are some of the most exciting from all of Italy, and I think it's a category that we'll see increasing. Tell us just in a brief word what the Alberello Etneo is, this unique form of training that I've seen in the vineyards that you will only find in Etna.
For sure, Alberello Etneo is the main training system used here on Mount Etna. At the beginning, a long time ago, they used this type of training system to maximize the spaces because this area is very steep, especially the north slope of Mount Etna. So the steeper is the area, the less so is the space. And in order to plan more vine per hectare, they use this. So the distance among the vines is about 1 meter and 1 meter. With this training system, they also maximize the air circulation, just tying the shoots on the tip of the chestnut post in the middle, and the sun exposure. Because with the training system, we don't have a precise exposure. So the vines, each vine take the sun exposure the whole day. For sure, Alberello is the benchmark of this territory, is a part of this landscape. Personally, Pietradolce, even for the younger vineyards, the new vineyards, decided to use the Alberello Etneo and not the cordon or the double cordon training system.
Okay, that's really interesting. So this traditional system has been proved to be the best way to train and cultivate vines in this unique environment and being adapted even for the new vineyards that you replant. Can we discuss a couple of your most iconic wines, which I think will give our listeners a real flavor of the Pietradolce wines and also of these great wines, the white as well as the red. So let's start with your flagship, Sant'Andrea Carricante, which is an IGT, not actually an Etna Bianco.
Sant'Andrea is an IGT because the idea behind Sant'Andrea was to exalt the Carricante grape from old vines. That's why we just choose the oldest vines in our pre-phylloxera vineyard in Milo. We fill up a 2,000-liter wood cask, and this wine remain in contact with the skins for 8 to 10 months. So it's an over-macerated white wine. And in this case, in this way, we are able to take the most from these outstanding grapes. The profile of Santander is pretty unique. We didn't want to label this wine as Etna White. Actually, it's impossible. Even if we would interested in label this wine as Etna White, it would be impossible because the profile, the color, and the parfums of this wine are totally different compared to the usual Etna White we are used to drink. When I have to explain Sant'Andrea, I should say the profile is Mediterranean herbs, oregano, sage, lemon peel. So it's a very outstanding and complex wine that we serve at a higher altitude of ambient temperature, so 14, 15 degrees Celsius, in order to take the most of this particular profile. And it's a wine that match very well with some particular local cheeses, or for example, I prefer it with healthy food instead of seafood, so mushrooms, porcini, or truffles, for example.
Wow, that sounds, I haven't tasted the Sant'Andrea, but it sounds a fascinating wine. So it's a lengthy skin contact in the old wood barrels. Now we're talking about Carricante, a white grape of Etna. And you said that these vineyards are on the eastern slope near Milo. Why is the eastern slope so much more adapted to the production of Etna's best white wines?
I would say for three main factors. One is the direct facing to the sea, so the ocean breezes keep the temperature, mitigate the temperature much more than on the slope. The second, all the forests that surround Milo, so they help to reduce the temperature, especially during nighttime. The third is the Valle del Bove. Valle del Bove was a huge collapse that occurred about 10,000 years ago. And this collapse brought billions and billions of tons of soil directly to Milo. So Milo is much more fertile with a very deep and sandy soil, much deeper and much sandier compared to the northern slope. And this particular soil match very well with a very vigorous variety like Carricante instead of Nerello Mascalese. So in Milo, that is very close to Valle del Bove, in Milo it's very rare to find a vine of Nerello Mascalese. It's 90% probably is Carricante.
Fascinating. That's really interesting to see how, as you said at the beginning of our chat, how just moving around the slopes of the volcano, the terroir changes so comprehensively that different styles of wine can be produced. Now, Caricante is also one of the few Italian white grape varieties that lends itself to lengthy aging. I'm imagining your description of Sant'Andrea, that acidity, which is a hallmark of Caricante, allows this wine to age and improve and evolve for lengthy periods. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. The Carricante grape, especially from old vines which produce very concentrated grapes, and especially from Milo, are very aging worthy. I would say these wines in Milo sometimes are more has more aging potential compared to some Nerello Mascalese. So they can last for 12, 15 years sometimes
Wow, that's fascinating. That's really interesting.
without losing freshness, without losing acidity. They remain very fresh, very vibrant, with a lot of tension on the mouthfeel.
Yet also able to be enjoyed young.
Sure, yes, yes, but I mean, I personally I prefer them after 4, 5, 6 years. Over time, they will be close to some Riesling, so they gain lot of hydrocarbon sensations like white petrol, like gasoline, very, very delicate, very elegant. So no borderline, something very, very well integrated.
Let's turn now to your Barbagalli Etna Rosso, another flagship wine of Pietradolce.
Barbagallo Rosso is our benchmark, our Grand Cru red. We use just a Nerello Mascalese grape from a very little vineyard. It's less than 1 hectare. And is a perfect half moon shaped area that faces the north. It's the highest vineyard we had actually, 900 meters above sea level. We realized since the beginning in 2009, 2010 that this vineyard is able to combine power from a precise clone of Nerello Mascalese and elegance from the altitude. That's why this one is our Grand Cru with a lot of fruity notes on in the off and balsamic texture, especially over time. And they will remain young for a long, long time with a aging potential that can reach 18 years sometimes.
That's a great description. I guess these two wines, then, the Sant'Andrea and Barbagalli, would you say they represent the greatest expression of Etna for Pietradolce?
They are our purest expression of Etna, for sure. Even the others like Archineri, Rampante, Santo Spirito, but these are our premier crus. So they refer to a precise microclimate, a precise vineyard, precise conditions, but for sure, Barbagalli and Santander has something more.
Okay, that's great. These are both gastronomic wines. Can we turn to the gastronomy of Eastern Sicily and the foods, the local foods that pair best with the wines of Pietrodolce?
The Pietradolce wines are very good with earthy food, especially here the reds we produce in the Ronde slope. They match very well with mushrooms, umami food in general, but they also very, very interesting in pairing with local food, with, for example, pasta alla norma, which is a benchmark of Catania cuisine, for example.
The pasta alla norma, can you describe that?
For sure, it's very, very simple, very, very tasty. So just pasta, aubergine, fried aubergine, tomato sauce, basil, and a cheese that is very important here, which is ricotta salata. So there is a ricotta, dried ricotta, very, very salty, that adds some freshness to the pasta. And it's a good combination because we have sweetness, we have saltiness, we have a very unique texture thanks to the aubergines. So it's a complete meal with just a few ingredients. Very tasty.
And paired beautifully with a carricante.
With caricante, even with some easier and earlier to drink expression of Etna red, like for example our Pietra Dolce red.
What about the rosato? What would you pair with your rosato?
We are very close to sea, so seafood is very important here. Rosato match very well with raw tuna or raw seafood in general, for example. Sometimes with some risotti, like risotto and zucchini.
That sounds good. I like that. And of course, the great reds of Etna. How would you pair them? I'm imagining that there must be wild game from the Nebrodi Mountains. I know that there's beautiful salumi made in the Nebrodi Mountains.
Sure, there is a very benchmark variety which is the Nebrodi black pork. It's very sweet. They produce a lot of salami, a lot of stuff from this wild pork. And for sure, the Etna Reds match very well with this type of meat. Or, yeah, I repeat, with mushrooms we have plenty of porcini, for example, in the Neboli Mountain Range. There are also present some truffles. Or why not? We cook here a very outstanding sausages with black pepper, with fennel seeds, and that we match with wild herbs from Mount Etna. And the combination with Etna Reds is outstanding.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Now, Angelo, finally, what about wine hospitality at Pietrodolce? I'm sure my listeners, having heard your descriptions, would really love to visit the winery, to see this beautiful winery, and to learn more about the wines, taste the wines. Is that possible?
We are also delighted to welcome all our wine lovers in the winery. We provide a complete tour because everything begins from the vineyard. So we start from a nice walk in our Archineri vineyard, which is the first pre-filled Loxera vineyard we bought. We will continue with the visit of the winery and the masterpiece we have in it. And finally, the tasting part in our beautiful tasting room that faces the Nebrodi mountain range and the small volcano, Moyo volcano we have in front of us that you can enjoy from our very beautiful window in our tasting room.
That sounds stunning. In fact, my Italian wine podcast colleagues who have visited Pietrodolce have described what a wonderful setting the winery is in. So I look forward to visiting myself next time I'm in Eastern Sicily, which I hope won't be too long. Angelo, you've taken us on a beautiful tour of Mount Etna, of the world of Pietrodolce, and of some of the wines. I know you produce a larger range, but we've described some of your iconic wines and also the foods that pair so well with them. So thank you very much for being my guest today. It's been a real pleasure meeting you here.
Looking forward to welcome you and to welcome our wine lovers and the wine lovers in the world.
Grazie, and I hope to see you soon. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.